Our next guest is here in the studio, and I think he's now partyless, or he'll tell us, because he recently resigned from the Jubilee party. He wrote a long letter to the leader of Jubilee. It's like 3 pages of a letter, so many paragraphs. So he's starting the journey. Oh, you know, the first time I met you and shook your hand, and then we joined the party together, and this and the other. Raphael Tuju, good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Thank you for hosting me this morning.
Karibu sana. So you left Jubilee. You'll tell us where you've gone to next, or whether you need to go to any party.
Yeah.
Or so on and so forth. But also we'll be reflecting on what's happening in the country. You've talked about, in that letter, you say you've been away from the country for a period of time, and when you've come back, you find that things have changed. You'll tell us what those changes are that you've noticed from your experience in politics. Yeah. But first, Janet is going to welcome you with the day's quote.
Yes. This was said by Amilcar Cabral, a revolutionary leader from Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde. And this was said in January of 1966, and this was during a tri-continental conference in Havana, Cuba. And he said very simply, tell no lies, claim no easy victories. I'll say it again, the quote is, tell no lies, claim no easy victories. What does that speak to when you hear it? Tell no lies, claim no easy victories.
I think that, well, I don't know what he meant, but if I was to put it in today's situation, is that we're living a lie.
Yeah.
We don't like to face the truth. And for doing that, we're paying a very heavy price. We just into the business of sloganeering and not really addressing the root cause of our problems.
Yeah. And this was in 1966, and here we are, 2025. Right.
It's just sloganeering.
I mean, let me give you another quote. This is from Frantz Fanon, the revolutionary. He said, every generation has a moral obligation to identify their role and responsibilities and discharge it courageously.
Every generation.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that is something that I can talk about my generation, what we did.
What you did in your
and
generation.
The challenges facing the current generation.
So Raphael, you've walked a long journey, you know, in politics. But even just before that, just before we went on air, there are very many people, a vast majority of the population of this country that doesn't know that you are a news anchor.
Oh, yes.
At some point when you were Gen Z.
Yes. In fact, I think that's very interesting, because as I was coming here for this interview, I was just remembering when I was interviewing the Minister for Economic Planning and National Development way back in 1986, when I was a young journalist, probably even younger than you guys here right now. And that was the late Dr. Robert Oko. And he told me then that at that particular time, actually, Kenya had the highest rate of population increase in the whole world, 4.2%. And that, of course, if you looked at places like Kisii, Kiambu, and Kakamega, including now what is Vihiga, it was at 6%, which was unprecedented in world history in terms of demographics. That is attributable just to births, as opposed to, you know, people migration because of wars or natural calamities. And he told me then what we're going through now, that we're going to be in very hot soup with the youth population bulge. He told me then, it's 40 years ago. 1986. So what I'm seeing now, I mean, it's kind of eerie for me, because, you know, in subsequent years, in subsequent decades, as a country, we never addressed those problems. Those countries which address those problems have been able to get out of them. I mean, I'll tell you something else. I mean, look, in 1973, I remember when President Kenyatta was launching KICC, and I'm remembering this because I just came in from China. The 28-story KICC building was the tallest in Africa. And in the whole of China, their tallest building was 26 stories. So they were marveling at that time just how this young African country had actually surpassed them in some of the, you know, most important indices. In fact, the GDP per capita was below Kenyans until the year 1978, within my lifetime. So we got it
At
wrong
some point.
somewhere. At some point,
Yeah.
we just really messed up.
At what point, in your observation, what was the point where the vision wasn't matching where the country was supposed to go? Was there a certain point, or just was it gradually over time?
It's always gradual.
Yeah.
It's always gradual. I mean, Lee Kuan Yew, which I think probably you've read about, the celebrated Prime Minister of Singapore, when he was asked that question, how come that at independence, Kenya and Singapore and South Korea were all at the same level of economic development, he said that, Kenya got it wrong when anybody who had a mind was either shot, like we shot Tom Mboya, was our Minister for Economic Planning at that time, a very visionary leader. So he was shot dead, not far from this building where we are right now. And when I'm just quoting to you the encounter with Robert Hooke, I mean, he was killed. The only lucky guy who survived amongst that generation of thinkers was Mwai Kibaki. And to his credit, the very first time that Kenya reached economic growth rate of over 7%, which was the essential minimum we needed to be able to address our Gen Z problem, was done by Kibaki in the year 2007. Then we descended into our ethnic mobilization, and that crashed in the year 2007.
Very, very quickly.
Yes.
Before we even get into the politics of the day, you're also an Emmy winner. Yes.
Tell us about that.
He's an Emmy winner.
Look at
guys. International Emmy. A lot of young people right now, where if you say yes for the children, that might not click to them.
Yes.
But it was a HIV and AIDS campaign, awareness campaign.
Actually, this was about youth that time.
It was about
It was
youth.
children.
Okay,
Yes.
not
Yeah.
oh yeah, actually you're right. Say yes for the children, quite literally.
Yes.
But you also did do quite a bit of work around HIV and AIDS. I'm looking at some of the steps back we've taken as far as the fight against AIDS, whether it's USAID cutting their funding, whether it's our rates spiking a little bit, and of course, especially even among older demographics, which is something that you would not expect, and I'm using that term very lightly. And also now, yes, the youth bulge. Say yes for the children. Your thoughts on where the rain began beating us? Because I think around that time, the work around HIV and AIDS awareness was solid, especially around Kibaki's first term and so on. And we saw the results. And then again, as you said, 7% we hit that bare minimum for us to deal with this youth bulge. But somewhere
along the way.
yeah, again, the rain started beating us. Specifically, where and when with HIV and AIDS and with young people.
Well, the rains have been beating us for a long time, and it will continue to beat us as long as we continue to be stupid about all these things.
Quite literally.
To be blunt about it. We have retrogressed in certain times, and really, if I was to go to some of the situations, it's not new. I mean, yesterday I was talking to some journalists, and I brought up the issue of some of the young people, my generation. What happened in my generation? We died. Titus Adungosi was a student youth leader of my generation, and what happened is that when when the 1982 coup attempt happened, he was one of the young people who were arrested. He was jailed for 7 years, despite the fact that he was really just innocent, because there was just a soup of students, 20, 21-year-old, 22-year-olds, and he died in jail. I can talk about Jeff Mwangi, died in exile in Norway. I can talk about there was people like interestingly, Mudavadi was also arrested together with
after the coup.
Yes, among the students who were arrested, because the arrest was random.
Arresting students.
Yes, arresting students. Mudavadi survived because his father was a cabinet minister in Moi's government. Murave also survived because his father was fairly influential at that time. Very much like what happened recently when former Speaker J.P. Muturi's son survived. you know, he didn't go the direction of Ojwang just because his father was able to make the right phone calls. So sometimes it's important that my generation of people tell you what happened. I was with Ogengo Gego. He was simply profiled. He had nothing at all to do with the coup. But because his surname was Oginga, then he was associated with Raila, and he spent 8 years in jail. You know, Durongwen, the current chairman of ODM, did jail time for no reason whatsoever. So I got so many of this. You know, there's Mutuse, there's my former classmate, Mwandairo Muganga, you know, ended up in exile, and many died. So this reign started beating us quite a while, and I'm just giving you some of the students that...
it's been happening for a number of years.
For a number of years.
And then, Raphael, your generation came into leadership, right? And the expectation then, in fact, was that, you know, this younger generation, the independence generation is exiting and the younger generation is now coming in, and that was you, your generation. The expectation was that things were going to be different. Did things improve?
Well, first of all,
under your generation?
No, first of all, I must say I'm sorry on behalf of my generation. I think we start from acknowledging that we failed at a national scale. At an individual level, I mean, we performed differently. I think I'm able to look back and say that in Kibaki, when I had a chance in Kibaki's government, I mean, I didn't buy a chopper. I have no record of stealing from the public coffers, so to speak. So our career is different. But can you say that our generation really took over? No, I don't think so. A few of us were able to come in, but like even the Kibaki government, I was the youngest together with Balala. Everybody else was older than us. I mean, you know, Meshuki, Kibaki, Njeka Karume, Mudi Awori. So they were in charge. So you can say that probably the post-independence generation who took over was just President Uhuru Kenyatta and current President President Ruto. Yeah. So, but I must start by saying that I apologize, because really in my generation, I recall, and it is fact, everybody knows it, if you ever went to Kenyatta University to do a Bachelor of Education, you did your attachment in a secondary school and you are paid. By the time you're going to graduate, you had already had a job, you'd been posted. Now, there was very good planning which made sure that as students qualified, there was a place they were going. That at least you have to give to the generation before that, you know, the Kibakis, the Mois, and so forth. You have to give them credit. Now, in my generation, in our current leadership and the immediate past, 1 million kids leave Form 4 every year. The government can hardly employ more than 50 to 60,000. So what happens to close to 1 million every year? We had some leave last year, 1 million or thereabout. In November this year, that is 2-3 months from now, there'll be another 1 million. And in the previous 5 years, 1 million, 1 million, 1 million. So why are we surprised when we have increased crime, when we have restlessness, when we have a youth who are despondent, who are, you know, see no light at the end of the tunnel? So we have failed. But that's the extreme side in terms of failure is concerned. There are, I keep on saying that, you know, our best days are still to come. So we can still solve these problems.
So now, it's good that you're taking accountability and responsibility for your generation here and saying, you know what, we didn't do the best that we could have done. And we are not yet. And you're not yet there.
Yes.
So what exactly is it that you would say that just flopped, you know? Because in like you're saying, in that generation, in the last 30 years is when we have seen our population continues to grow, the same way it was growing in the Dr. Robert Ouko days of the mid-80s. It continued to grow. The youth bulge was there. The educated new leaders like you could see it. And you had a lot of information of what was happening in the country and what needed to be done. It just wasn't done. I say that to Raphael Tuju, who was a member of parliament, who was a minister, who has been a leader of the ruling party, Secretary General of Jubilee at the point when it was ruling, and then you were a leader of, executive director of Azimio when you left Jubilee in 2022. So you sat right there at the seat of power. And in fact, even when you were not a cabinet secretary, you were advisor to President Mwai Kibaki. So you were there at the helm of leadership. What went wrong?
I can tell you unequivocally, the biggest challenge we have is our ethnic mobilization in our politics. For example, I think I did a fairly credible job as a member of parliament of Rarieda. I was abroad the other day, which I've just said, and I was in London. I was being hosted by one orphan who I took through high school and through university. And now he's a cybersecurity expert, consulting for the UK government, for Moroccan government, for Rwandan government, from Botswana government, and so forth. But that's just a very small contribution. But I could not survive as member of parliament for Rarieda because of the ethnic mobilization of that time. I dared to support President Kibaki, who was a Kikuyu, and I happened to be Luo. So whatever ideas I had as to where the country should go, how we should do things, and so forth, could not work because of the ethnic mobilization that took place in our political process. And unfortunately, that ethnic mobilization is still taking place today, and Kenyans are swallowing it.
Who's mobilizing? Ethnically?
It's the political class.
Yeah, it's the political class.
It's the leadership of the country.
Yeah, of course it's the leadership of the country. But tell me, I can be very honest about this. If you had to count in your hand the most important political leaders today we have in the country, what is the source of their power?
Tribal
their
base.
Tribe. Precisely. That's how we mobilize.
We're moving from that. We're shifting.
I hope so. I pray so. Because as long as we continue that,
I don't really think so.
Oh, I think you're going to say with the demographic, that's
Yes.
the younger demographic.
Yes, definitely.
For the most part.
For the political class, that's still very much the modus operandi, MO. It's
the organizing principle.
Yes, you bring your numbers, I bring my numbers, and my numbers are based on my people, quote unquote. So that's where they are. But I think we're actually moving to issue-based politics. And this is, I'll give credit where it's due, because of William Ruto and the hustler narrative of 2022. That thing of hustlers, as much as it was still very much trying to create a narrative of us versus them, us being hustlers versus them being...
Yeah, like a classist sort of.
Class. It was still classist and egregious. I love that term. But it took people away from tribal mobilization. So that moved us a little bit closer to ideological, politics. But I don't know what you think.
Yeah, but we're back to ethnic mobilization right now. 2022 was, admittedly much better than previous years when the tribe played a much bigger role. But when you look at the situation today, we are back to ethnic mobilization.
Are we? Show me.
No, I think it's kind of obvious. There's no point stating the obvious, because I don't want to make statements that will make some of my friends in the political arena a little bit angry, because I don't think it is useful. But I think that as a country, we ought to be honest enough to realize that we are on that path. And one of the reasons why I'm very passionate about it is that, again, as a former journalist, I covered the civil strife in Rwanda. 800,000 people died in just a matter of weeks. Everywhere else, some of the places I covered, whether it was Ethiopia, because I covered the Ethiopia-Eritrea war, it was ethnic. I covered the war in Mozambique. You would say Renamo and I don't know, MPA, whichever parties were there. It was ethnic-based. I covered Liberia. I covered South Sudan. And just to give you the example of South Sudan, South Sudan fought for their independence for 50 years. 1.5 million people died in that struggle for 50 years. It was an average death of 30,000 per year. But fast forward, between 2013 and 2018, in 5 years, in that civil strife in South Sudan, which is ethnic-based, 400,000 people are killed, which means that 80,000 per year,
Yeah.
which is double the number of people who are dying or who are killed
In the
during their
clamor for
struggle
independence.
for independence.
Wow.
So that's how stupid this ethnic mobilization gets.
Yeah. And I think one day we're just going to have to face that issue. I want to see now, going back to Jubilee, and whether it seemed like Jubilee was born out of sort of like survival, right? Because this was coming out of everything that had happened around ICC. So the question I have is whether the turning point where things began to weaken was in 2017, or whether from the very beginning it was built on shaky ground.
Let me tell you, when you try to create change in a country like ours, which in all respects is not a nation state, but a geographical phenomenon, all right? But that's the truth, all right? Then we have challenges. It's very difficult to get the tribe out of the people. It's very difficult. Right now, one of the challenges I face today is that there are very few Kenyans I meet. You've invited me here, and you're not looking at me as this tribe or that tribe. I don't even know your tribes as we sit here. But for most Kenyans, the first time they meet you and they ask you, what is your name? If they cannot figure out your tribe in that name, they ask you, where do you come from? Which is another way of finding out what's your tribe. And if you say you come from Nairobi, then you say, no, tell me, where exactly did your parents come? Yeah, home ni wapi, you know. So it is inherent in us. But, you know, we have to be very careful. And if I have to go back to the letter that I wrote in terms of my resignation from Jubilee, I highlighted some of the problems that we have. I mean, in our region, 3 members of the East African community are failed states. And if you go a little bit further, I mean, out of the top 10 failed states in the world, when you put Haiti, when you put Yemen, Afghanistan, Syria, and a few others, I mean, you know, the top 10 are from our region. Then somebody can say, you know, maybe you're being extreme. Let me just come closer home. You know, failure of a state is not happening, it's gradual. And when institutions that are anchor of the state, of the modern state, the judiciary, the executive, and the parliament become dysfunctional, those are very, very serious issues. But when the country cannot guarantee security, and I can tell you that security is not guaranteed in this country. I can say that without any risk of contradiction, because I can challenge any of you here now, if you can get out of this place and drive to Lodwar, or go to Baringo, or drive to Lamu, or Wajir without worrying about the security situation. So parts of the country are actually failed because the instruments of state are not working. The only thing which makes them Kenya is that they use the Kenyan currency. But for the rest of it,
that's the only unifying factor.
That's the only unifying factor.
We're going into a break. Still want to find out whether Jubilee was built on shaky ground. That's kind of, I'm trying to get the birth of it until your exit. I just want to understand that.
And I can say that very, very quickly before you go into the ground. The shaky ground is the country.
The shaky ground is the country, not necessarily... Not the party.
Not the party. The country is shaky. I mean, ask any politician today, I mean, how to build a party. The first thing they start is, tutaleta kabila gani na kabila gani.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. You'll come back and tell us more and defend it more, because it means every party is built on shaky ground. Which is, okay.
Which means the country is...
It's it's the truth.
Yes.
All right, so let's come back and unpack that truth with Raphael Tuju, who's still with us in studio. It's coming up to 7:30. We'll come back and continue this conversation.
Joy isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a shared smile, a small victory, a bite that takes you back. Across the years, across the table, some things never change. It's joy passed down and served again. Farmer's Choice has always been there, giving you trusted, wholesome nutrition for generations. Farmer's Choice, timeless joy.
Kenya, twende mbele. NCBA, go for it.
Watu wanashukuliwa ni watu wako na password ya 3. Mimi nimetoa password wapi? Normally mimi ndio nakuanga suspect, but in that case...
Introducing Smarter Weekly 300 and 500 bob. Browse, chat, call, and rudishiwa 100% transaction fee na Airtel Money. Ukitransact any pay bill across the country. Ukitransfer chapa from your bank to Airtel Money. Uki-withdraw chapa from an Airtel Money agent. Dial star 544 hash or use My Airtel app. Asanteni wa Kenya.
Diaspora banking involves giving financial services to Kenyans living and working abroad. Just looking at the market, it is estimated to have about 3 million Kenyans and who contribute about 3.5% of the GDP. We help them invest in shamba, vacant land financing. We help them invest in, purchase homes, and we also help them with construction financing. We also have wealth management. So for those who want to invest in money market, treasury bills and bonds, we take care of their pension. Sometimes when you're going to the diaspora, you leave a dormant pension. So we make sure that, we activate it.
The numbers appear to look good, yet this is the case.
Income is the price of labor.
It's explaining economy in such sort of obtuse terms that we cannot relate with.
We're willing to work, we have the certificates and all that, but then the country has no employment opportunities.
Unemployment is at 67% right now for young people between the ages of 18 to 34.
So at what point do we remove our personal sentiment from the numbers?
Get so used to bad things happening that it's so normalized, you start asking for an alternate state.
This is The Last Word. Every Tuesday on NTV.
This September, the future of Africa's energy takes center stage at the heart of Volcaria, Naivasha.
Today have signed an MOU that will aim to strengthen the strategic partnership that we already have with KenGen. So this alliance aims to bring us together to support some key programs like the Sustainability Energy Summit that's coming up.
We have a new strategic plan running from 2024 all the way to 2034. And our focus is purely to increase our capacity, our generation capacity, by another additional 1,500 megawatts, purely from renewable energy.
Join us for the second Sustainable Energy Conference starting this September 17th to 19th under the theme Renewable Energy for Sustainable Development. Don't miss this powerful convergence of ideas, leadership and action as we power a cleaner, smarter Africa.
At Sensei, we don't just teach, we train. We equip with hands-on, market-driven courses. Looking for industry-based training with real tools, skills, and real outcomes? Look no further. Call 0729 891 301.
I'm James, so from Nyeri, and what I do to make sure that our country changes is that I enlighten the people that I meet with and tell them that it is their votes that will change this country and that they should be very wise to make sure that they have a background check of the people that they brought in.
Thank you so much, James from Nyeri. That's your WhatsApp Nation video. You did a great job of giving us an idea of who you are, where you are, and what you're doing to fix the nation. It's a little reminder, a bit of civic education, right? Do your background checks on the people that you're putting into power. Your power is at the ballot. Figure out, who is this person? What do they stand for? What is basically their political ideology beyond just tribe? And speaking of which, I think we'll be getting our WhatsApp Nation from Raphael Tuju. He could, for example, tell us, after putting his phone in landscape mode, hi, my name is Raphael Tuju, and my part in fixing the nation is moving Kenya beyond tribal politics and tribal mobilization, even in party leadership and party structures. That's my bit in fixing the nation. And send that video to 0112 500 400. That's 0112 500 400. I was not hinting that you should send us one, but if you would like to, that would be that would be lovely.
It's a place for you to start.
Yes.
You know, like remind yourself how you're doing on the screen.
Yes.
I think you should be paid more, guys. You're really marketing Nation Media Group.
Oh, that's good. In fact, Paul Maina stuck in my paper saying, when I was young, Raphael Tuju was my best anchor. And like Trump, I asked, where did you learn your English? Or referring to the time.
Wow.
Referring to the time Trump asked the president.
Zelensky or
no, when you had the 6 African leaders paying him a visit in Liberia, I believe.
It was Liberia.
And so that's so suppose you can answer for
where did you
learn your English?
Just in school, like the rest of Kenyans.
Like the rest of us.
Like the rest of us.
Raphael Tuju was the founder Secretary General of Jubilee Party until 2022, when he relinquished that position. It was taken up by Jeremiah Kioni, and then later when they formed Azimio, he became the executive director of Azimio. And last week, he wrote a letter to the party leader of Jubilee, Uhuru Kenyatta, saying, I've been a member of Jubilee. We started this journey with you a long time ago, and it's coming to a point where now I want to leave Jubilee. And let me just read an excerpt of what you are saying, that we dare to dream and to be naive in the Kenyan political arena that we could go beyond tribe. I still hold dear onto those values of our shared humanity beyond the easy tribal mobilization of us against them. And I think it's good to be naive like our Gen Zs. I believe that a time is coming when the Kenyans will be able to come together to confront the challenges of the youth population, the population bulge that we've talked about so many times. The time will soon come when more Kenyans will understand that our enemy is lack of employment and dignified income, and not the other tribe. And just as we were going to the break, the question that Janet had asked you is, was Jubilee formed on shaky ground? You said the country is formed on shaky ground. Does this mean that we are just doomed?
No, I don't think so. I mean, first of all, let me just explain the fact that the country is formed on shaky grounds. We are not a nation state. We are a geographical phenomenon brought together by the British, the 1884 Berlin Conference. So in terms of nationalities, we're very, very, very different in certain respects. I mean, different languages. I mean, for example, if you talk about the Nilotes in this country and the Bantus, their languages are more different than, say, German and English. In fact, it's more like the difference between English and Russian. That's how different we are in terms of language, culture, and so forth. But we find ourselves in this state. And we can decide to concentrate on those differences, but we can also decide what do we do with where we find ourselves. And we must give credit to Kenya. For example, I mean, you know, the Europeans themselves had their tribal differences, and there are people who are alive who were there in 1939 to 1945, when the ethnic clashes in Europe, the Germans fighting the British and the Italians fighting the French. You know how many people died? 70 million. So when you bring that to the Kenyan situation, we've had our moments in post-election violence of 2007. Regrettably, we lost 1,300 people, but you cannot compare that to 70 million. The Rwandese, our next-door neighbors, they killed themselves on those ethnic issues, 800,000 of them in just a matter of weeks. In Uganda, they had similar problems. They have not recovered until today. And so many parts of Africa, I mean, I've talked about South Sudan. I mean, DRC Congo is a failed state in many respects because of those ethnic differences. And many people die every day because of those ethnic differences. So let's give credit to ourselves as a country. Somehow we've been able to navigate, and despite all the problems we have, I was giving an example the other day. You know, an international organization like the United Nations, after taking all the risk assessment, analysis, and so forth, they still found Nairobi to be the best place to come and establish even more United Nations headquarters, which we're going to host in Nairobi. Nairobi, for example, is the center of Africa, whether anybody likes it or not, because from Nairobi to 11 capitals in the region is 2 hours or less. So we're a natural hub, and I think we should be able to leverage this kind of thing. If you're talking about our youth population bulge, big problem, but if you talk to economists, they'll tell you there's something called demographic dividend and demographic bomb. We can change the demographic bomb to demographic dividends. We have a market, we have an educated population, and I remember when I was talking to some of my friends in the international development agencies, they were telling me, look, Raphael, that was during Kibaki time, and I had the opportunity also to be the escort of honor for President Clinton when he was in the country. He said, if there's anything that you must not depart from, is free primary education and free secondary education. It puts us way above a lot of people in our region and in the African continent, for that matter. So, okay, on one side we have horrible, gloomy picture, but I think that as a country and as a person who has occupied those high positions in this country, we must have hope.
Right.
But we must point out where we have problems too.
I like the realism and the balance of it. I was going through, the letter. There's bits and pieces, and then it's well written. I was going through the part that says many of us in Jubilee, in the Jubilee expedition, had thought and dreamed that we could build a national party and a country that could make a transition from politics defined by ethnic mobilization and polarization. And you spoke into this, but I'm thinking, Raphael, beyond the English, why have you left Jubilee? Beyond the flowery language and the nice letter, why did you leave Jubilee?
I'm glad you say it was a nice letter. I was a journalist. Just
I know. It's important to recognize it was a nice letter.
Yeah, I think it was important that I do that so that I'd articulate why I made that step out of the Jubilee Party, so that I'm free to air my opinions going forward without it being said that you're talking on behalf of who. Now I can talk on behalf of myself. And the party cannot turn around and say, but how can you say that and you're a member? So it's essentially just stepping aside, stepping into a free space where I can talk to you right now without worrying what Jubilee may think about it or what Azimio may think.
Somebody else may counter this, and the fact that you want to have a moment and to speak freely by just throwing in that bite by Mwai Kibaki. Suddenly you become very clever, Raphael. Suddenly, very clever. You had all these opportunities to make the changes and even to speak from within the party so that things can change. They didn't change.
I think, if I may borrow from the Bible, because Kenyans like the Bible. I mean, they have some of the best looking Bibles, but they don't really believe in it.
It's early. It's not even 8.
7:43 a.m.
People have not even done morning devotion. Now they look at the Bible ahead of morning devotion and be like, do I believe what I'm reading? But yeah, go ahead.
So there's something, if you talk to Christians, there's something called the ministry in terms of what you say, but there's something called the ministry in terms of your lifestyle. So looking back at my career in the political arena, I can say that I've tried my best. I cannot speak about everybody else, but within the means that I had when I was a member of parliament, I did the best I could possibly do. As a minister in charge of communication, I think that I was very much responsible in doing some of the things that we did to make sure that the local content was improved. As Minister for Tourism, I think I got KICC back from KANU ownership. I brought, I addressed the issue of increased number of tourists in this country. I'm not saying that I was perfect, but I think that none of us is perfect. But I think we can do better. And where I failed and where we failed, I've apologized. What else can I do?
So Raphael Tuju was doing very well. I mean, the best that he could
to my ability.
To deliver. But then looking around, there were those who were dropping the ball. Were they dropping the ball deliberately, or are they just not aware that there's a ball even?
It's both.
Some were there, but they just didn't know the
I mean, there are those who dropped the ball. I mean, for example, all the corruption which is still happening until today. You see the question of governors, dipping their, fingers into the till. That's deliberate and that's criminal. But there are those who cannot even have the kind of conversation we're having here because they don't even know where the rain started beating us. I mean, we have a youth population about, and they think that the best thing is to give them some money so that then they can cheer them. But that is Band-Aid on a big wound. And can't blame them. If they don't know, they don't know. And I think that is also, some of the ones who are responsible for the ethnic mobilization, suddenly they have become clever enough to all over the sudden say that, they know what is ailing this country, but they're mobilizing ethnically. And I don't think that ethnic mobilization is answering the problem of the youth population bulge. I would like to hear more in terms of what are we doing as a country with, because the templates are there.
Right.
Whatever is happening.
Before we go to the template,
yes.
I was trying to think through why then be, for example, Secretary General of a party that is formed on this shaky ground. It's not up, see by force. You could have said no as well. Or were there any moves? Like, I'm just sticking to Jubilee before we get to the template for the fix, right? But yeah, you're Secretary General of Jubilee. You have been Executive Director Azimio. Is it? Yeah, that's the correct title. Yes. Yes, these are powerful positions. Were they powerful enough to change things? Or if not, then why stay? And why accept in the first place?
Yeah, I think, well, that's part of the naivety. You hope you can do something about it. And I always say that you have to appreciate that, the boat is punctured. But you have to do your best in terms of sailing as you meant the boat. So you're fixing the boat as you sail. The alternative is to keep a distance and to be a very clever commentator with all the solutions from the side of the field.
Okay.
So I think that the worst mistake that a lot of us all over the world, but in this country for that matter, good people like you want to say that, look, that thing is too dirty for me. I don't want to get involved in it. But as I think one of the philosophers who said, was it Plato, that bad governance is the price good people pay for letting bad people govern them.
Okay.
What were your fixes? I'm still curious.
You're still curious. And I still want to come back to the template point, Mariam. Let's not lose it. But even as you were speaking, I'm wondering whether this is a departure from Jubilee or a departure from party politics altogether. Because some could argue if the ground is shaky, and I've been inside and I've been on the sidelines, maybe this could be a chance for me to build something new that's not on shaky ground.
No, I think the shaky ground will remain in Kenya as things stand right now. Kenya will always remain shaky for a long time. And it is the responsibility of you, me, and everybody else to do the best we can to fix the boat as we sail, so to speak. I don't know if you want me to go into the solutions.
Yes.
Because we can sit here and lament and cry.
Solutions are important.
It's the what next.
Yeah, what next? And I think that what next is the responsibility of all of us. And I think that there are you know, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. We should take stock of where we come from. I mean, I still mourn Titus Adugosi until today. I mean, you know, he was a poor fellow. He was coming from a poor family. He died in jail 3 months before he was supposed to be released. His mother died because of that trauma. I still, you know, empathize with some of my, you know, contemporaries like, you know, Ogego, former Ambassador Ogego. He was in jail for 8 years. Actually, he's the longest serving political prisoner we have today. And, you know, Kenyans generally don't know about that. So we have to accept the history that we came from.
Yeah.
And then we have to say, also appreciate where we are. Now, how can we go forward? And I think it's important for us to appreciate that this is not rocket science. We have to be able to, you know, in some way puncture some of the lies, the notions, the conmanship which is going on. Politics is mobilized on ethnic grounds. But the very leaders that we have, in their personal lives, they don't organize it on the principle of tribe. In all our families, we have mixed marriages.
Yep.
I mean, whether you talk about Raphael Tuju's family or President Uhuru's family or Prime Minister's
family or
Ruto's family, they have everybody from every tribe.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden, when it comes to politics, then we, you know, we go the ethnic route.
Even beyond the marriages,
yeah, even
they're
beyond
friends.
the marriages, they're friends.
That's true. They're business partners.
Yeah, the business partners and so forth. So I think that, you know, while there's hypocrisy in that, but I think that we can be able to say, let's stop being hypocritical and solve our problems. So that, for me, gives me hope. The hypocrisy is there, but it means, therefore, that this ethnic mobilization is not fundamental.
Right.
It is convenience. Yeah, it's for sure. But there is opportunity for us, really, to get along together. We are not at war at the scale that you find in neighboring countries. So we can fix our situation. That.
Yeah. If you were to talk to young Kenyans, would you tell them to join political parties or disrupt them altogether?
I will not talk about disruption because being disruptive is basically violent, and violence begets violence. If you look at some of the failed countries around the region, the moment you have, say, for example, violent change of government, it takes forever to get things back to normal. I mean, Siad Barre in Somalia is probably the only president we remember. After that, you have transition after transition after transition, and the whole state has collapsed.
I don't know that I was seeing it from a violent perspective, but I can see how it could have been mistaken.
Yes.
I meant just disrupt ideologically, disrupt the system.
That's the next thing I'm going to talk about. I mean, part of the disruption, for example, for the Gen Zs, they have this wonderful opportunity to really disrupt it in that positive way, which means that they have to register and vote in 2027. Because in 2022, 7 million guys did not vote.
Yep.
So their voice was not heard.
Yep.
Nobody stopped them from doing it, or maybe there was inherent things which stopped them from participating.
The why was, there was no one on the ballot that they saw that fit the bill for them.
Okay, fine. I mean, those are realities. We can look back at those, but looking forward, we can have a velvet revolution in this country in which people don't have to lose blood.
Yeah.
Agreed. Just hold your thought for 1 second. We have a caller coming in from Mombasa. I think Kevin is his name. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning.
What's your question or comment for Raphael Tuju?
Kitu ya kwanza nashukuru sana msimu yangu. Nataka kumuuliza Raphael Tuju. Mimi napika simu kutoka Mombasa nchini ndani. Nataka kumuuliza Raphael Tuju. Ni nini kilichomfanya kujihudu Ni kwamba alijiuzulu sababu ya kushawishiwa na mtu ama alijiuzulu mwenyewe? Sababu mimi nilikuwa najua Raphael Tuju angejiuzulu kwa wakati huu. Inaweza kuwa kuna siasa ndani yake ya kujiuzulu ili apate tabi chama kingine. That's my question.
Asante, thank you, Kevin. I think amekupata.
People are reading a lot into this resignation.
Kulikuwa na ushawishi mahali.
Are you being pushed out, or have you been approached by other political quarters?
Party, yeah.
Well, let me say something. You know, if any politician ever tells you, never again, or I'll not associate with any other political party or whatever the case may be, then that politician is basically lying to you. And that is true in Kenya, as is true in Japan. My friend Abe, former prime minister, he said, no, I'm having none of this. And then within no time, he was the next prime minister. Okay, so that's reality. And really, you cannot say you have exited politics, because everything affecting us today is political. I mean, politics is about, it's about everything in our life. I mean, the taxes you pay, how much you pay for your bread every morning is directly related to the political construct that is in that country. So if you decide that you're completely staying out, then, you have a problem. But to
Kevin's question, he's asking, is it a push from within? Kuna ushawishi flani, someone, pulling the strings? Is it because there's another political party that you want to go to?
No.
He's trying to read it.
Yeah, he's trying to
why.
read that. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I've had all kinds of speculation as to why I came out of. I officially resigned from Jubilee, and as I told you, I was out of the country when there was a lot of developments in court and so forth. But this is a personal decision. It is a personal, just like it was a personal decision to join Jubilee, when obviously the easy thing for me coming from Luo Nyanza was to join ODM, where from the ethnic aspect of politics, it would have been very easy for me to capture a position as member of parliament for Arieta or governor of Siaya. But I made a conscious decision to work with Jubilee. So in the same way, I've made a very conscious decision to resign from Jubilee. And from my letter, you can see there are no hard feelings. Yeah, it's
You're
just
being very positive
I made that
about
decision.
it. Last year, when the broad-based government was formed, some quarters said that Raphael Tuju was also involved, in the behind-the-scenes negotiations. Can you clarify that? Was it true or false? Because you also came out later to say you actually think that the broad-based government was a good thing at that point.
Yes, there's no contradiction in that. I thought it was a good thing. I still think that it's a good thing. Why am I saying that? Actually, Kenyans they just like to be dishonest. They're in the broad-based government, like my brother and great friend Mutahi Kagwe. He's from Nyeri. Then there are those from, Luo Nyanza, and there are both those from other parts of the country. There's even a third option. There's those in the broad-based, there are those in one term, and there are those who are a hybrid. They're in broad-based, waiting to get out
to one term.
to see how it goes. We're about to go into a break.
Yes.
Hold that.
So it's a national pastime.
Yes, before we
and
go
I don't want to
into
be pulled into that.
You don't want to be pulled in. Before we go into the break.
But for me, what is important is that we must embrace and appreciate constitutionalism.
Yes, let's not lose Paul from Nairobi. He's a caller. We'll take his question and then go into the break. Paul, good morning. Do you have a question or comment for Raphael Tuju today?
Morning, speak with the nation. I am Paul. I'm calling about it. I want to ask a question. You are doing the question. Who was part of the NAS government? And all my of that government was allowing the private sector, not government before, money from the private sector to allow the private sector to work in that place so that allow growth in the public sector. So allowing government not to work like, I mean, what I'm saying is that what government what the was like it did allow government to go into the market, move outside and allow the private sector.
Paul, you're not clear.
Paul, you're not very clear.
The call is not very clear. I think we'll try and get you back maybe after we come back from the break and see if we'll have a clearer way. But let's take this break at 2 minutes to 8. Raphael Tuju, former member of Jubilee Party, is our guest this morning. We'll continue this conversation for a couple of minutes after this break. Back in a moment.
But first, another developing story are following for you, and a disturbing one because this trend is very worrying. An accident occurred last night at Kanga Bridge along the Nairobi-Mombasa highway between Voi and Musitu and has caused a massive snarl-up affecting both lanes of the road. Now, in a statement by Long Distance Drivers and Conductors Association, a truck and a trailer had collided head-on, causing traffic along the major highway. The accident comes in the wake of a report by the Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport, Davis Chirchir, who blamed road infrastructure, driver behavior, and conditions of the vehicles for the accidents witnessed on the roads. This was also a hot button, I think, for Eric and the team from The Last Word, just around what is causing this increase, these road carnage and accidents. And I think it was that combination of driver behavior and the design.
Bad design.
Bad design.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know, is there a way to weigh them and figure out which comes
before the other? Well, obviously design would come before the behavior because which accounts for more
accidents.
The unfortunate bit is that because the data you're using will come from government, at no point have you ever seen the government saying that this accident was attributed to a bad design of the road. It'll always be, reckless driving, it was driver error, and so on and so forth. So you'll hardly see government saying we erected the bumps at the wrong place. Apart from that one accident at Karai in Naivasha, where then the president also came and said, how could you have just erected a bump and not even include any signage? So this truck that was carrying some inflammable material just came and plowed into vehicles in traffic, caused that. So you'll hardly see data that shows you from government that it was design error. But anecdotally, you can just clearly see if 70% of the people who have died in Nairobi on road accidents are pedestrians, that tells you that something is happening. There are no pedestrian walkways, there are no pedestrian footpaths, there's not properly lit roads, footbridges,
yes, not flyovers,
roads are not lit, roads are not well marked. That's design that will now lead to people doing all these other things that they're doing. Raphael, what do you think?
Well, I think you've said some of the things because there's a multiplicity of causes, but we have to appreciate is an infrastructure deficit. You just read what happened, head-on collision or whatever the case may be. That would not happen on Thika Superhighway. You have a different type of accident on
the dual
carriageway. So this is an infrastructure deficit. The road to Mombasa, the road from Mombasa to Nairobi is a major road going all the way to DRC Congo. How can it still be a single lane with all those trucks trying to take things to DRC Congo, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and the western part of the country? So it's an infrastructure deficit. That road should have been dualed
many years ago.
30, 40 years ago, at the very minimum. So it's like when you try to drive today from Nairobi to Nakuru, it's like a parking lot.
Yeah, it's hectic. We're getting back into the conversation with you. Just want to sample some quick feedback. Kalani, who says they love the show and they're saying, I've been following Raphael Tuju for a while. I want to credit him. He's a performer, so maybe he should try the Kisumu governor seat.
Well, I don't come from Kisumu.
No, yes. They've written Kisumu, but I was coming to correct them. And then they go on to say, I'm not campaigning, just a suggestion. And the Kikombe says, please stop gaslighting young people for not voting. The leaders in power should be accountable, whether voted by a few or all. You cannot beat today's child for yesterday's storm. I think that was on the comment on voter turnout.
That's it is very true. It's where can we take back our power if if you don't show someone then that you have them at the ballot, it becomes hard to hold them accountable. But they should be accountable regardless of if 10 people voted for you or 100 voted for you, regardless.
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
Getting back to our conversation now, we were doing the fixes, but I wanted to ask a question on the idea of former actually part of your mandate as Minister for Tourism. Is that when KICC was? Yes, it was under Ministry of Tourism, right? Bringing the KICC back from
Kanu.
From Kanu.
Kanu occupation.
Occupation is that's what we shall call it. Kanu occupation. It's a major national monument right now. You look at how many events happen there. It's a beautiful thing. But now I'm also seeing a trend around privatization of state resources, state corporations. What's your view on that one from an economic perspective and a political one as well, even from a cultural and social one?
Well, just to make it interesting, the first time President Uhuru Kenyatta ever went to the roads to demonstrate, and he was tear gassed, was when I took over KICC. Okay.
Yep.
So
the famous photo.
Yeah. So we always laugh about that.
Give us context. Those of us who may not remember.
Yes. So you can't remember. You are too young, maybe, or maybe not even born. But yeah.
So what happened on that day?
What did happen?
No. What happened is that Kanu was very, very upset that the government had taken over KICC from Kanu. It was where the Kanu headquarters was situated. But even more interesting is that they had bought Kanu KICC, and according to the records, they bought the whole place for 1,200 shillings. And of course, there were those who...
Deal of a lifetime.
Yeah, it's quite a deal. And there were those who... And it was done illegally. So we had all the evidence. And there were those for whom this was, a gravy train. They rented different aspects of the building, and the money used to go to their pockets. So by us, at that time, NAC taking over the facility, I mean, it stepped on the toes of very many people. But of course, that time, Uhuru Kenyatta was the head of Kanu, so he had to fight back on behalf of the other members. But I remember joking about it, later on when I was serving in his cabinet, that, well, KCC was now bringing money to the government of Kenya. So surely it wasn't a bad decision. After all, I don't know why he went to the streets.
And got tear gassed.
I got tear gassed, but...
Okay. I'll look for that picture. I would love to see it.
Yeah, that is... It's all in the game.
He's like, like coughing. Okay.
The famous photo.
It's all in the game.
Photo.
Yeah. Okay.
So just around Mariam's question on thoughts on the other...
On the privatization, right? And just before you answer
Simon.
that, yes, Simon is on the line. Okay, from Busia. Good morning,
Siaya.
Simon. Siaya. Pole. Good morning. Please turn down the volume of your TV or radio so that we can hear you.
Okay.
All right, Simon, what's your question or comment?
My comment is that Honorable Tuju, going by his record as an MP and even when he was a cabinet, is a capable leader. He should just gain courage and vie for governorship of Jaya coming 2027. He's likely to perform better than most of the people who have been there and who are also intending to provide.
Okay.
He's done a better job. And we can serve people better.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.
Thanks, Simon.
I don't think you can escape the question.
No, I can't escape the question, but I'd like to put things in perspective. Once again, this is the problem of Kenya, that everything is seen in terms of political positions. The problems you're facing in this country, the problems that, say, any county is facing today, are multiple, and a lot of them are structural. I don't think that I can be of more use in SEA than the current, governor, because there's structural problems. The resources which are made available to the counties hardly is enough for development. Most of it goes to the current expenditure. So these are fundamental problems. It's got nothing, sometimes it's nothing at all to do with the individual occupying the office, unless, of course, they are stealing from the resources of the county at industrial scale in some respects. And this is not about Raphael Tuju. But if you want to talk about Raphael Tuju, I like to say that, look, I'm not inclined in any way to become a governor of Siaya, because I'm Nairobi based at the moment, and before I make those kind of decisions, I've got several people working in my private companies, more than 100 people, and if I make any decision which is going to negatively impact on 100 families or more than 100 families, I have to be very careful about that. And that's personal, and also to get the concurrence of my family. Yes.
Okay. Back to the other question, privatization of state corporations. Your thoughts on it?
You know, privatization is not a bad thing as long as it's being done honestly, as long as it's not about creating some oligarchs, as happened in Russia. If you go to China, a lot of institutions are state-owned corporations, including the media, or for that matter, the company which has built the SGR is a state corporation. And there's a time and place for privatization. Like at independence, Kenyans didn't have enough resources to buy taxis, and that's when, you know, Kenatco used to operate the taxis which came from the airport. Today, that would be nonsense that a state corporation starts getting into the business of running taxi companies, so to speak. So there's a time and place for everything. What is wrong is when dishonest political people use their positions to create oligarchs by taking state institutions at a throwaway price.
The conversation around privatization didn't even start in this administration. In the Kibaki era, of course, we saw Kengen, Safaricom, the Mumias, all those IPOs. And then in the Uhuru era, there was the formation of a team to look at all these state corporations and see what needs to be done. That team recommended some of them to be merged, others into privatization, and so on and so forth. Do you think this current administration is handling this the best way?
No, I'm not seized with the matter, so it will be inappropriate for me to comment.
You're not aware?
No, I'm not seized enough with the matter and the details. You know, like I've seen, what I know is what I've seen in the newspapers about KICC or about KPA, you know, Kenya Pipeline and the rest of it. So I don't have enough details with which I can, you know, objectively comment.
Now, can you imagine if Raphael Tuju does not have enough details about some of these big deals?
Right.
Then who would have such details?
Well, Raphael Tuju is just an individual. And as I said, I've been out of the country, and I try to be very careful not to inflame the situation, because the moment I say something about it, then it will be headline the following day.
Taken out of context.
Yes, it will be taken out of context, and it will be headline, or it could send the wrong messages. And I'm inclined to make sure that by the time I comment on a particular issue, I really have enough information.
Okay, we have Caxton from Butere on the line. Caxton, good morning. Do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, morning to you. Yeah, I'm just wondering. I mean, with all these politicians, Mheshimiwa Tuju, I've known him for long. If you can, he can still remember the first vision to Kenya was Vision 2000. That was for water, that every home would have had water. Till today, actually, it is still a shame that we see people in northeastern or even right where I am calling from, still bedding down to in streams. What's happening with the vision? Politicians actually are the biggest problem in this country. Now there's Vision 2030. It's just 5 years to elapse. People are rich, stuck. They really got lots of money, excessively. What should be done? Actually, anti-corruption, I liked it when everybody actually gave the spirit to PLO to handle to run anti-corruption. But then he was fought back and kicked away. Surely.
Okay.
Do you have a question for Tuju?
Yeah. What has he got to say about that? Because he's been there.
Okay.
Well, you know, it's coincidental that you're talking about water. And I was in my village on Wednesday. And what did I go for? I just put a solar pump for the water in my village. And I've already connected most, or a substantial amount of my immediate Ralingo village to running water, and they're getting it for free. And this is my personal social responsibility. program. I don't talk about it. It's only that he's brought something about water, and I'm commenting about this because, in fact, this week I'll be buying more pipes. One of them has already gone to a home of a young former classmate who died several years ago. The mother is now 80, no, 90 actually. And she cried to me and told me, look, Raphael, let me have this water before I die. I'm just commenting on this, that there are certain things you can do at a personal level, and all of us can do this at a personal level without waiting that the government will do it. But there are certain things that can only be done at a policy macro level. Those things which can be done at that macro level, it is the government we elect that will or can do anything about it. But we have elected the governments that we have, from the MCA to the Member of Parliament to the governors and so forth. So, you know, the knife cuts both ways. As the electorate, we are also responsible for the mess in which we find ourselves. We elect somebody because they're our tribe. We elect somebody because they've given us money. We elect somebody for other reasons other than their capacity to be able to manage our resources properly.
Then it comes back and bites.
Yes.
What's next for Raphael Tuju? What happens now? Where do we go? What are the ambitions, the passion, the plan?
Well, you know, I just alluded to this a few minutes ago that, you know, I'm very, very privileged and blessed that for a long time I've been in the business arena with the ups and downs of it and so forth. But I'm very blessed, and really I'm having a great time rebuilding or building my businesses. This last 2 months I was putting into practice some of the things I preach. I mean, I had a whole range of people who applied for a job in my company, and I took somebody from West Pokot. That was the only reason. So that then my staff is mixed. I said, look, you know, this guy, for him to get to this level, then, you know...
But he was qualified, right?
But he was qualified. He was qualified, but I took him. Right now I'm looking at some, you know, some people we have shortlisted for, and I'll be going for a minority. And that's something I did even when I was Minister for Foreign Affairs. I was responsible for the appointment of the first ambassador from the Turkana community since independence. So we all can do something positive, and I'm very happy that I have this exceptional privilege. I started my business many years back. I bought my first land in Karen when it was 100,000 shillings an acre through a loan from National Bank of Kenya, and I've built on the, you know, on the backbone of whatever I did all those many years ago when I was in my 20s, and so I'm able to concentrate on that.
What about
in 2012, Raphael? You put yourself out there, wanting to be president of Kenya in 2012. And then you got into conversations with others and joined a coalition then. Since then, has that bug bit you to want to be president of Kenya?
No. And it's precisely because of the ethnic mobilization that goes on around building a political party. I mean, I don't have a tribal base.
So for that reason, in 2012, then you knew that you don't have a tribal base.
Well, maybe I was a bit naive. I didn't understand the extent and the entrenchment of ethnic feelings in terms of the political process. Because I was a product of the 2002 NAC revolution, where more people from Luo Nyanza voted for Kibaki than the number of people from Kiambu County, for example. The support for Kibaki in Luo Nyanza at that time was over 90-something%. He didn't get as many votes from Kiambu, for example, in terms of percentages. So there was some illusion that time, probably, that, you know, we had
crossed
that barrier. But I think the happenings immediately after that, in post 2007 elections, showed that you know, we were not quite there.
Which is why you say that you are supporting the broad-based government. Today, if you were called by President William Ruto and he wanted to appoint you into this government, would you join?
No, I would not.
Why not?
Because I'm very, very focused on my personal things at the moment, and I don't think there's any value that I would be able to add beyond the value that those who are there at the moment are adding. That's number one. But, you know, my support for the broad-based government is based on the fact that we need a constitutional transition when it comes to governance. When the Somalis made the mistake of not having a constitutional transition, see where they are. And when other countries in the region, I don't need to name them because some of them are my personal friends who are presidents, those who shot them their way into power, they have never been able to achieve stability. So, you know, see what happened in Egypt. There was a popular revolution. It didn't last. The military had to take over. See what happened in Sudan. There was this lady who was the star of the revolution in Sudan. Hadija, I think she was called. Where do you hear about her? You don't, because the military guys have walked in. The warlords are now in control of that country. People are dying every day.
Was that the only option, though?
What?
Because I think the broad-based came as a result of, obviously, you know, trying to bring two factions together. But I think for a lot of people, the push was legal, was constitutional, was by the book.
I think it's very imperfect. That I can say. It is imperfect. But then the thing is that, and very often, of course, I mean, it is imperfect, but I think the alternative of having a violent takeover of a government, the alternative of street chaos, of you not being able to come to work because the streets are unstable, is a question of weighing what other alternatives did we have. I think we have reached the point now that we are looking at the elections in 2 years' time. My appeal to Kenyans is that register to vote, mobilize, so that then you decide who becomes the next president. If you decide that that president is President Ruto, well and good. If you decide that he becomes a one-time president, let it be the voice of Kenyans, not the voice from the streets, from, you know, violence, so to speak, because violence begets violence. And I will not ever support violent takeover of any government, because I know, I've been there. I was in Ethiopia, I was in Rwanda, I was in Mozambique and all these other countries where thousands upon thousands of people have died because of ethnic strife. And if you are to have that haphazard takeover of government, you know, you will end up in more problems than what we have.
Who was threatening a violent takeover of government, and why was broad-based the only solution? I still think, both.
Well, I'm not the architect of broad-based, but I said I supported the principle. When you're talking about who was being violent, I think by the time you storm Parliament and members of Parliament have to go through an underground tunnel, that is not a very polite visit, is it?
You don't want to go into what necessitated the visit.
But the moment you undermine an institution like Parliament, I mean, for example, you know, I've had my run-ins with the courts in this country. I've gone to the JSC and the rest of it. The alternative is for me to organize some Karachuonyo dancers to storm the Supreme Court. But you try as much as you possibly can. As long as there's a way of doing things peacefully, I think we should be able to reach a consensus that, one, we need constitutionalism, which means that if there's any change of government, let us follow the Constitution. Let us have the rule of law and order. Because really, whenever there is violence in this process of changing of a government, let me tell you, the first victims will be us.
100%. I'll just disagree on the point that that there was a threat of a violent takeover and that it necessitated a broad-based government. I agree. Constitutionalism, absolutely. The rule of law, and 100%. But I think the fear-mongering is used to justify the broad-based government.
Maybe you're right, my daughter. I mean, maybe you're right. But I was pretty concerned. By the time we are storming Parliament violently, and members of Parliament, imperfect as that Parliament may be, they have to go through some underground
and ambulances
and so forth to go to safety. I mean, that can get out of hand.
It was at that point.
Yeah, it was that point.
That could move either way.
It could move either way. That can get out of hand. And let me tell you why I've got concerns about this. I don't know.
We're just about to go in a break, maybe in 30 seconds or less, if you can.
But then, the moment you allow lawlessness to prevail, let me tell you, if you're coming from here to Ngong, there'll be a youth roadblock at City Mortuary, at Dagoretti Corner, at Karen, and in Ngong itself. And you'll never be able to get it back.
Raphael Tuju, former Jubilee Secretary General, former Executive Director of Azimio, former member of Jubilee Party, and now businessman, Nairobi businessman. Raphael Tuju has been our guest for this hour. Keep it here. In the next 2 minutes or so, we'll be hosting Dr. Alutalala Mukhwana. He is a commissioner with the IEBC. One of the new commissioners have joined in, and they've hit the ground running. Statements here, statements there, work being done here and there. And we'll be asking him about this work and preparations for the by-elections and for the next general election. Keep it here for that. 28 minutes after 8.